I'm Annie Fitzsimmons. I'm your Washington REALTORS Legal Hotline lawyer. And today's one-on-one is once again with Ms. Pili Meyer.
Hi.
Thanks for being back.
It's a pleasure.
And in our last video, you and I were headed out the door to see houses. You had already explained to me, we'd already had our first meeting, and you'd done some background introduction and asked me to sign a buyer agency agreement. I wasn't comfortable with that yet, so you made a one-time concession to show me a couple of houses. I fell in love with you as my real estate broker, and so I'm ready to move forward.
Great.
So here we are again.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of paperwork, so let's get started.
Okay.
As you can see, I've filled in a bit at the top, the identifying you and me and on the first paragraph, my firm appoints, and there's my name, to represent you. We've already talked about the fact that this creates an agency relationship with us, with me and my broker, and no one else in our office is representing you, just me and my designated broker.
Okay.
Paragraph 2 says exclusive or non-exclusive. I only work with exclusive agreements because it doesn't make sense to me to put the same amount of work in the agreement and yet you can go buy with somebody else. That's not a good business plan for me, so I just offer sole exclusive agreements.
Okay. Just means I'm going to be working with you and you're going to be working with me, right?
Area, paragraph 3, we identified that you want to be in the general Port Angeles area. Would you consider Squim?
We'd consider anything
Okay.
until we eliminate it.
Then let's add Squim to this
Okay.
line, because I want to be, anything beyond that, I'll refer you to somebody else, because these are my areas of expertise. And while I'm licensed to sell property in Port Townsend, I'm not comfortable with that, because I don't know that market.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
In the event that the property that you pick is also listed in my office, my designated broker will be a dual agent. But the listing agent will only represent the seller, and I will only represent you.
Okay. Files are kept separately and that kind of thing?
Yes.
Okay.
This agreement will expire, let's see, based on what you've told me, we probably will be able to find the property within 45 days. And based on the type of financing you're getting, that could be another 30 to 45 days. So let's make this for 3 months, because that's a realistic expectation of what it would take in the niche that you're looking and with the financing you're getting.
Okay.
My firm makes no warranties or representations regarding the value or the suitability of any property. That's really up to you and perhaps the appraiser to determine what the value is. Value is determined by the buyer and the seller, what the buyer's willing to pay and the seller's willing to accept, and then of course the appraiser's willing to approve, if you will.
Okay, but one of the things you told me you're going to do is that when I find the house that we want, you're going to do a market value analysis for us.
I am.
Okay.
But that is not saying that that's looking at the whole picture and saying this is where it fits in the market, but I'm not.
You're not promising me that we're not going to have a market crash in a year and the whole value is
No.
going to fall out?
No.
Okay. All right. I'm good with that.
Thank you. We recommend inspections. In fact, we're so strong on recommending inspections that we include an inspection addendum in the purchase and sale agreement. And if you don't want inspections, then you have to say no inspections, because we want you to be aware that you have the opportunity to inspect.
Okay. Yeah, we're going to do an inspection.
Compensation. My fee is X% of the sale price to be paid at closing.
Okay.
And if you turn the page, this says that we will be working through the MLS and to locate properties, and there probably will be a selling office commission offered through the MLS. And if that selling office commission is X%, then you will owe me nothing at closing. If it's X minus anything then you will owe me that difference. So let's say it's X minus 1%, you'll owe me 1%.
Can we negotiate with the seller to pay that amount?
Absolutely, we can do that, because things have changed a little bit, and now sellers actually have the opportunity to offer 0 commission. But a provision is made that if you have a written buyer's agreement, you can request that the seller pay the buyer's side commission.
Only if we have a written buyer's agency agreement?
You got it.
Wow. Okay. Okay, that's interesting.
VA transaction.
We're not doing VA.
Okay.
We're not VA eligible.
A distressed home conveyance is, I'm sure, not going to be applicable either, because it had to do with people who were purchasing a home that was in foreclosure or they were about to have a short sale or something like that, and the buyer would then promise the seller they could stay in the home, and it was kind of a scam. And if you're not, that's not what you're looking for. This just says we're not going to help you if that's what you want.
Okay, you'll tell me before we get there, right?
Well, yes, it doesn't apply to you at
Okay.
all, because you're not going to offer them the opportunity to stay in the property.
Okay.
Attorney's fees in the event of a suit concerning this agreement, including claims pursuant to Washington Consumer Protection Act, the prevailing party is entitled to court costs and a reasonable attorney's fee. The venue of any suit shall be the county in which the property is located. So, if there's a lawsuit about this, the loser pays the fees.
I mean, if you sue me or if I sue you?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's
Now,
not sue each other.
no. Is there anything else that we need to include in this agreement?
So I'm almost ready to sign, but you'd said that you had an addendum to add to the agreement where you were going to tell me about the services that you were offering.
Well, thanks for bringing that up, and here it is. This addendum is between us, and it says that I will contact you with information on new listings and or the market daily, weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. And based on your situation, I think bi-weekly is adequate at this point. What do you think?
I mean, I always have to stop and remember which bi-weekly
Every
is.
2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks. No, I'd like to know more often than that.
Okay. Daily or weekly?
I'd like to know as something as soon as, I mean, every news report I read says that when something hits the market, there's going to be 5 offers on it. So I'd like to know as soon as something hits the market. That might be what we want.
If something hits the market that would be what you want, I will contact you immediately. But, okay, so we'll put daily. I'll provide you...
Well, okay, but just a minute. I'm not, only if there's something that you need to tell me about, right?
Right.
Okay.
The agent will provide the buyer with information about the current market. And the reason I like to do this is so that you can get a sense of where you should be and what your expectations should be relative to the market and the final price and all of that. I mean, I had one client who said sellers shouldn't expect to make that much money on the sale of their homes. And so if they had a lot of equity or if they didn't owe anything against it, he was just all for going in real low. Well, that is reaching his hand into their pocket. And
my kids like to say, stay in your lane.
stay in your lane. Is that important to you, to have that kind of market information?
I would like that. I'm kind of a more information is better type person.
Okay.
If I don't want to read it, I won't.
I'll provide you with a comparative market analysis on the property that you select. We already talked about that a little bit, and it sounded like that was important to you.
Very.
The agent will personally present offers written by the buyer to the seller when possible. Sometimes the seller is out of country or out of area. If they're in Hawaii, I'm happy to go and do it, but otherwise, I'll probably just present it to their agent.
Do we add that onto that other compensation provision about flights to Hawaii?
The agent will assist the buyer in selecting financing suitable to the buyer. This does not mean that I'm going to review the different loan products. This means, because they change so frequently, what I do is I review the lenders, the loan officers, and who does the best job and whose track record is the best, and especially in the category of real estate that you're in. So you'll have 3 to 4 people to choose from that I will recommend.
Can I pick my own?
Absolutely. You don't have to go with what I say. But I will recommend people who I think will do a good job for you in this particular market.
Okay.
The agent will provide the buyer with an estimate of closing costs. So your lender will give you some of these, but there could be other things that are involved, so I'll make sure that you know that well in advance of closing, so you have no surprises.
Okay.
And I will coordinate inspections. Now, you live out of the area, and so that's sometimes difficult, A, to know who to call, and B, to be around for the inspection to do all the scheduling. We have a list of providers some providers, some inspectors have fallen off the list because they have not done a good job. So
Yeah.
these are people that have been vetted by the agents in my office.
Okay.
And you can review that. You can talk to them however you want to do it. And then once you've selected, if you want, I'd be happy to make the inspection appointments for you.
Will you attend the inspections for us?
Probably not.
So we have to be in town for that?
It would really be a good idea. In fact, when my daughter and son-in-law bought their house, my daughter called, and they live in Sammamish, and she said, we have 2 dates for the inspection. One, my husband can be there, and the other, the agent can be there. And I said, pick the one where your husband can be there, because he's going to be living in it, and the inspector often has suggestions on different things. So, anything else that you want to make sure happens?
I'm sure there's other things that a buyer would come up with to add on there.
Really
but-
not.
Oh, really?
Really not. I mean, rarely do they have something else.
Oh, okay. Well, good, because I'm not thinking of anything else that I want to put on there.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and sign this. And you can sign it, and we'll be ready to rock and roll. So Annie, as a hotline attorney, do you have any comments or opinions about the issue of recommending different lenders?
Yeah, there were actually 2 things that we talked about here at the very end on this addendum that caught my attention as a hotline lawyer, not as a buyer, as a hotline lawyer. When I had asked if I could use a lender of my choice, and you had said, sure, I'll make recommendations, but you can use whoever you want. That's certainly what the buyer agent, well, so here's my thought as a hotline, as the hotline lawyer. There are so many buyers, so there's so many deals that fail because buyers use incompetent lenders, right? So I'll often get a question in class from a listing broker or from a broker asking, is it okay for the seller to require the buyer to use a particular lender? And of course the answer is yes, as long as there's no relationship between, so long as there's no RESPA violation, where there's an affiliated business relationship that gets violated. And I really don't think there's anything wrong. In fact, I think that it could be a very good practice for a seller, when a buyer comes to the seller with a financing contingency, for the seller to say, here's my list of preferred providers. Of course, that list is probably generated with the help of the listing broker, but for the seller to require the buyer to select a lender from a list of preferred providers. Because for the buyer to simply get pre-qualified by a seller's lender, or a lender who can do a good job, a competent lender, is irrelevant if the buyer then goes and makes a loan application and tries to get the loan from an incompetent lender, right?
Good point.
Yeah, so I don't, certainly listing brokers and sellers don't have to have a preferred list of providers, but I don't think there's anything wrong with it. We see builders do it all the time.
True.
Yeah. And then the other thing that caught my hotline ears was when I asked you if you would attend the inspection on our behalf, and you said probably not. I thought you would say emphatically not, just because there is so much risk associated with a broker attending an inspection on behalf of a buyer. Now, I know sometimes geographical limitations prevent a buyer from being at the inspection, and maybe this is where your conversation would have gone, but to say that I'll open the door for your inspector and I'll be present while your inspector's there because my MLS keybox rules require me to do that, you are going to have to talk to the inspector. It's your inspector. You're going to select the inspector from this list of inspectors that I might give you as a recommendation, but you're going to interview the inspector. You're going to select the inspector, and I'll coordinate and open the house for them, but then you need to follow up with the inspector, FaceTime, so he can show you pictures, or on the phone, or by email, or however it is, but it's your job to communicate directly with that inspector. I can't tell you what the inspector found or what the inspector said.
Good.
Anything else on buyer agency agreements before we wrap up this video episode?
I just think that it's a great idea for people to wet their feet on these and start practicing. That's the last thing. You have to practice. And as an industry, we are loath to practice on our own. We just expect that when we try something for the first time in front of the commission-paying public, it'll be perfect, and it rarely is. So be respectful to that.
In fact, it took us more than one take to film these videos.
You're telling them that?
First try,
First
right?
time.
So we will be back one more week though, right? Because I want to put on my hotline lawyer hat and make sure that our Realtor members understand the moving parts, if you will, of the buyer agency agreement. We just heard the presentation of the buyer agency agreement from the buyer's broker presenting to a buyer, but as the hotline lawyer, I want to also have a shot at telling you what the provisions of the buyer agency agreement mean and how they impact you as real estate brokers. You come back one more time?
One more time?
All right. In between now and then, if you have a question, send it to me by email, legalhotline@warealtor.org. Thank you for being a Washington REALTORS member.